This episode is powered by Celsius. Now, whether you're in the gym or you're on the run or, hey, you're just doing a podcast, grab yourself a can of Celsius and live fit. So this is a shameless pitch for Strong New York, September 27th, right at the Glass House on 48th and 12th Avenue. We are throwing the biggest fitness and wellness event this city has ever seen. Every year it gets bigger and bigger. This year we'll have 5,000 people, 80 plus brands, and you will be there. So make sure you get your tickets at strongnewyork.com. It's that simple. All right, we're back with another episode of the Strong New York podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and thank you guys all for listening. We are over 40 episodes in, so I'm very excited about that. When I first started doing this, I was like, all right, we're going to do this, and we're going to see it all the way through, which is I will continue filming these and hopefully till the day I die. But as always, we are powered by Celsius, so thank you so much to Celsius. My favorite drink is now a sponsor of the podcast. So grab yourself a Celsius and live fit and get as jacked up on Celsius as I am. Today, we have our first ever returning guest. She was in season 1 where we were still the Strong as Fuck podcast, and now she is back because she had helped us with, she was speaker at Strong. She's helped us with our Summer Shred Challenge, and she is a fan favorite, so we brought her back. Rachel Scheer,
Kenny,
here in the house. Thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so excited to be on your podcast again. I didn't know I was the first returning guest.
You are the first returning guest.
I'm so honored.
Yeah. And and when you were like, oh, I'm going to be in town, tell everybody why you're in town.
I was shooting with Peter Hurley.
So for those
new headshots today.
So for those of you who don't know who Peter Hurley is, he's probably one of the greatest portrait photographers.
Headshots ever.
Yeah.
Gabrielle Lyons headshots. Did is it Ava Pomperous?
I mean,
her name wrong.
He's done everybody.
Everybody.
He's
phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's very blunt and very honest. He's like a kid.
Yeah.
And so he'll tell you if you do not look good at all. There was a girl he was shooting and he was like, "Your smile's great. Smile with your teeth. They're just yellow, but we'll whiten that." Like,
oh shit.
Really honest. And I was like, "Oh, you said that?"
Yeah. He's unapologetically.
But he's great. He's
yeah.
great.
So
beautiful shots.
When we were at Gab's event, I had sat next to him at the dinner we went to the last night, and he was just like such a down-to-earth, real guy. I loved him. And I was like, and at first I didn't know, I knew his name, but I didn't know what the hell he looked like. And then when he introduced himself, I'm like, oh shit, I know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a great guy. Yeah. So what are you up to? Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for the Summer Shred Challenge. You like kind of completed the circle of like what we needed.
Yeah, that was such a great challenge. I think it was incredible to be able to dive into both of the aesthetic side, but also gut health and nutrition.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody got a ton out of it.
Well, I think there's a lot of, with all the information out there, right? People are still so confused about like what they should be eating, what they should be doing. You know, even the other day, I went to an event for Men's Health. And one of the sponsors, I guess, for the event was Beyond Meat.
Beyond Meat?
Beyond Meat.
Oh, no. The Frankenfood.
Yes. Yes.
Frankenfood. It's
and
so bad.
This dude, the guy who was, I guess he's the CEO or founder or whatever it is, was so passionate about, kind of the history of why people should eat plant meat. And I'm like, which I said, I go, this sounds fucking weird. But he went into this whole story about how we like lived on the plains and they were like, there were millions of buffalo. He goes, do you think they were killing a buffalo a day for people to eat? I go, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Eating meat and
for thousands of
years.
Yeah.
Hunter and gatherers. I mean, the reasons why we have these big teeth here in the back of our mouths. I don't want to say what they're called. I'm not a dentist, but we've been hunter and gatherers for, like you said, thousands of years. And, it's not to say that somebody can't still get in protein through eating a plant-based diet. And so, but I think a lot of people don't realize, though, is it has to be a full-time job. Like, it's literally a full-time job if you're going to try to eat real whole food, number one, and a lot of these other substitute foods like the Beyond Burgers and all of these other hyper-processed foods. One, that they're terrible for you. They're terrible for your gut. I can't tell you how many people come into my practice with a ton of gut issues. They're on a plant-based diet and then we have to transition them. And as soon as we put them on more of a whole foods based diet, even a carnivore diet, they see massive improvements in their gut health. And fiber is great, we know, for the microbiome. But as a whole, I mean, to actually do a plant based diet well,
Hmm.
it literally has to be a full-time job for that person who's doing it. And I think there was, I forget what the documentary was on Netflix. Do you
Oh,
remember?
forks over knives or something, right?
No, it was some documentary about how you can still achieve optimal athletic performance eating a plant-based
Yeah.
diet. And
I've
they had all
watched
these
one.
athletes. But what a lot of people don't realize is for those people, that is literally what they did full time to eat enough protein to support skeletal muscle mass, getting it from a plant-based source. You're going to have to eat an abundant of beans, of rice, of quinoa, of nuts and seeds and all of these plant-based foods, and you're going to be on a really high carbohydrate diet. Is it possible? Yes. But for the average American who's not going to count their macros and who's not going to make what they're eating a full-time job, I don't like thinking about food all the
Hmm.
time. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to eat good food and I want to know it's doing what it needs to for my body, and then I can shift and focus on my life around me and not make what I'm eating a full-time job. And so to actually do it well, it literally has to be a full-time job. And I think that's also a massive disconnect for a lot of people that they don't realize. So is it possible? Yes. Is it ideal? No, where you could get high quality protein, grass-fed and finished beef, wild caught fish, pastured chicken, and get a good cut of protein. Throw in there some vegetables, maybe some starches, make it whole foods based, and you're going to hit your protein and you're going to give your body what you need instead of having to, I mean, make it your full time job. Or if you're not, you're eating all these processed foods and then you're not supporting skeletal muscle mass. And then we're running into issues with diabetes, insulin resistance, and other metabolic issues down the road.
Yeah, I've actually had, I don't know if, did you meet Jamie, Dr. Jamie at Strong last year?
I don't
She was
know.
there. Anyway, she had told me years ago that, the sickest clients she's ever had were all,
Hmm.
you know, vegan and plant-based. And most of these people have some serious gut issues. And, you know, where does the gut issue come from? Because if meat has what, the 9 essential amino acids, how are you getting all those amino acids from plants? You just have to eat an abundance of it? I mean, how's that work?
Yeah, so we have to get in different types of plant-based foods to get
Mhm.
all of the amino acids that our body needs, and we have a full amino acid pool. And so we can add in different protein sources to try to get all of those amino acids, but rarely are you getting the same amount of amino acids in, let's say, 100 grams of chicken as you would be getting in, let's say, 100 grams of quinoa,
Yeah.
right? And so you'd have to eat a ton of quinoa, which means the calories and the carbohydrates are going to be 10 times higher. And so that's why most of these people are on a pretty high carbohydrate diet. And then if they're not eating a whole foods based, maybe more paleo type diet, then we're eating more processed foods. And we know that can also wreak havoc on the gut. And a lot of our gut bacteria, to answer your question about how this impacts the bacteria in our gut, they ferment off of carbohydrates and fiber. And there's a lot of different things that can lead to something called dysbiosis in the gut, which is an imbalance in the good and the bad bacteria. So we have, trillions of microbes living in our guts, and they play a role in digestion, they play a role in our mental health, hormones, thyroid function. It's connected to almost every system in the entire body. And these microbes eat what we eat every single day. And they love fibers. They also play a role in our, I should say, they also respond to our body's stress levels.
Mhm.
And so when somebody is eating a very processed food diet, and if we also look at the average American who has a lot of stress in their life, their body's operating maybe more in a catabolic state, a breakdown state. And then what happens when the body's in more of a stress state is the gut begins to shut down. It stops producing digestive enzymes. And then let's say you pair this with a diet that's full of processed foods, artificial foods. And what can actually happen is you begin to feed a lot of the bad bacteria in the gut. So a
Hmm.
lot of people end up with bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, which leads to a lot of other issues, hormone issues, thyroid issues, mental health issues. Their gut's really inflamed. And then if we also look at the foods that we're eating that are full of pesticides, herbicides, that also plays a massive role in our gut health. So it's environmental, it's the foods that we're eating, it's our stress levels, and all of these things are going to play a role in our gut. So it goes beyond just the food, but I would say the food, of course, is a massive part.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a problem with the understand. Like there's just so many voices out there and so many people saying different stuff. For instance, I went for the blood test a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
One of the companies that we're working with Strong, they were like, "Hey, we'll do a full blood panel on you." I don't remember what time of day I actually took the test, but my LDL levels came back uh, at like 157.
Oh, so they're high.
They were high.
Yeah.
Now
What was
I've
your
been,
HDL at? Do you know?
I don't remember. I could look it up,
Yeah.
but um, I was like, wait, I eat pretty clean. I don't, and they were like, well, you're probably eating too much meat, too much red meat. But when I do eat red meat, I'm eating pretty lean
Yeah, but
cuts.
cholesterol is not the problem, and that's what a lot of people get wrong is cholesterol is not bad. Our body actually makes all of our hormones out of cholesterol.
Mm,
Now, some people can have different genetic predispositions where they can have issues which can lead to more hyperlipidemia and a lot of more cardiovascular risk factors. And
mm,
so we could run an extensive cardiovascular panel on you, look for something called LP little a, oxidized LDL. That's going to give me a lot more information than just looking at your LDL, your total cholesterol, and your HDL. If you eat a lot more animal protein, probably your LDL is going to be a bit higher. And if you're maybe not getting enough omega-3 fatty acids, most of us are not because we get that from fatty cuts of fish like salmon. That's typically going to be a bit on the low side, but we can't isolate just a lab marker. We have to look at the full person. And
mm.
so if I were to look at your glucose, your insulin levels, I would imagine that your insulin levels are going to be pretty low. Your glucose fasting would probably be okay. You are fit, you're healthy. What percent body fat are you at? Do you know?
Maybe 10, 11.
10% body
Yeah.
fat. Yeah. So you're going to be metabolically healthy in
Mm,
terms of what your insulin would be at for you to have that low of a body fat percentage.
mm,
So you're going to be more insulin sensitive. We could look at your inflammation levels. So something called CRP, homocysteine. And if you have some inflammation, okay, maybe that's a little bit of a red flag. But the problem is the combination of systemic inflammation in the body, it is insulin resistance, which type 2 diabetes,
mm.
combined with this hyperlipidemia and these cholesterol issues, that is actually what's playing a role in cardiovascular risk factor. So that's why we have to actually look at the person. You are somebody who's metabolically healthy. So if I were to see your LDL a bit on the high side and your total cholesterol high, which also being on TRT can cause your testosterone to be a bit higher in
Mhm.
itself, then I'm not going to be worried about it. Maybe I want to run a bit more of extensive cardiovascular panel. And if you have oxidized LDL, that's high. I doubt it. Or you have LP little 8, which is genetic, that's a bit high. Okay, maybe we need to pay a bit more attention to this. But that's what I mean. We can't just isolate it and we have to look at the full person. So I honestly wouldn't be worried about it. And it's going to be because you're getting cholesterol from the proteins you're eating.
Yeah, well, one of the recommendations was maybe you should get on, a vegan diet
Oh,
or a
God.
vegetarian diet for
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, "I don't know if that's gonna work," you know?
So you
I would rather fast for 3 or 4 days than switch over to just eating
so
vegetables and shit.
even a better recommendation, let's just say, okay, this is something that is getting a bit too high and we need to pay attention to, which we should look at the full picture first, number one.
Mhm,
But doing the Mediterranean diet is going to be 10 times more effective, which is still going to be high in protein. It's going to emphasize more fatty cuts of fish, olive oils, the Mediterranean diet is going to actually help increase HDL,
Yeah.
which is what's going to carry the cholesterol molecules to the liver to be able to eliminate it effectively. And so doing something like that, still high protein, is going to be 10 times better than doing something that's like plant-based.
I agree. And they didn't even offer that as an option. I actually take omega-3 fatty acid.
Yeah, most people need it.
Yeah.
I'd say 9
Efficient.
out of 10 people who we run labs on are deficient in omega-3 fatty
Yeah.
acids.
I don't even think I was deficient in it, but I still take it
Yeah.
just as like,
Yeah.
I take that. I take magnesium now.
Yeah.
I take TRT. I take a bunch of shit so my hair doesn't fall out. And I take a
Did you start to lose
thyroid.
hair getting on TRT at all?
I don't know if I did or if it was just me getting old. I don't know what it was, but I did. I recently have done PRP. I'm on minoxidil. So
We
my
could run a
back is
test.
getting hairy. What?
We could run a test. And so if you're converting a lot of your testosterone into dihydroxytestosterone,
Yeah.
and for some men it can create
And
more
that's what's
hair
happening?
loss, women, acne. Yeah, that can
Mhm.
create more of the hair loss.
How
That's
often
why guys lose hair when they get on testosterone, they get acne.
are you prescribing women to take testosterone? I know there's a lot of girls out there who are like, should I be on it? I have one of my coaches at my other gym in New Jersey. She's 52. She
Yeah.
takes a low dose of it. She looks incredible for her age.
I'm a fan of
Yeah.
it, and it's not about just looking at the number, it's about looking and treating the person. I
Mhm.
think so often, just like we were talking about earlier, we isolate these numbers and the person can be miserable. They can be struggling with fatigue, low libido, and someone could look at your testosterone and be like, "Oh, it's totally fine." Well, could you feel better if it
Yeah.
was optimized? Great. But should we also still explore maybe why it's a bit on the low side? I also am a big believer of that too in
Mhm.
functional medicine. There's many reasons as to why you could have low testosterone. Environment, toxins play a massive role. It could be because of stress, it could be because of diet. And so I'm all for let's get on TRT, but let's also simultaneously work on all other of these things that could be influencing your testosterone levels, because where we see one thing that's maybe off or low, we're probably also going to see other things that are off and low in the body as well, because
Mhm.
the body is an interconnected system. And so it's not just like one thing gets lowered. And so when we can optimize these core things that are influencing your hormones, we're going to fix the whole system. Anyway, but women and testosterone, if they're struggling with symptoms, low libido, maybe struggle maintaining their skeletal muscle mass, most women don't put on a ton of muscle getting on testosterone unless maybe they do too much of it.
Mhm.
Testosterone is very androgenic and mildly anabolic. And so,
Yeah. So I try to explain that to people. Everybody's like, well, you're jacked now because you're on testosterone. I go, it hasn't made me jacked. It just gives me
you
the
maintain
ability.
muscle better, I
Yeah.
would imagine.
But it gives me the ability
Mhm.
to work out without pain anymore. It only allows me to be fired up and more excited about working out, but it's not
How about your
it's
energy and
yeah,
all
it's not
of
an
that, though?
anabolic
Yeah.
steroid, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't like help you build muscle mass,
Mhm.
right? I don't know. I'm asking. Like, does it help you build muscle?
No, it's gonna help build skeletal muscle mass. It
Yeah.
is anabolic, but it's far more androgenic than
Okay.
it is anabolic. And so, yes, for men who, let's say, get on a higher dose of TRT
Yeah.
and maybe their levels were at around 300 and now they get on testosterone and they're up to 700, 800. Yeah, that guy's going to be able to build muscle easier,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
And he'll probably increase his weight getting on it. But for women, where a woman's testosterone range is between 30 and let's say 130, she's not going to be able to take enough testosterone to make it that anabolic for her to put on a ton of muscle. Now, if she were to get her testosterone, which actually my mom did this, it's hilarious. My mom was prepping for her first powerlifting competition and she's on testosterone and she had this thought. She's like, I'm going to up my testosterone and I am going to like increase my strength and my recovery. And
How
it's
old's your mom?
hilarious. She is 56.
God bless
Powerlifting
it.
competition, right?
That's awesome. Love
Incredible.
that.
She's
Yeah.
the oldest woman to compete
No
in a
shit.
powerlifting
That's awesome.
competition. But she started to get some very interesting symptoms that she probably would not be happy with me
Hair growth.
sharing. No. It makes things grow,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
It makes things grow. So it's
Yeah.
very androgenic. So yes, hair growth is one of it. For women, it can lead to acne. Eventually, it can actually change a woman's voice. So it's going to actually thicken the vocal cords. And so women will actually start to sound like a man. And
Yeah.
so if a woman wants to make a sex transfer, she's going to get on a large dose of testosterone.
Mhm.
Right. And so that's what the androgenic effects are, is it's going to actually give more of these masculizing effects.
Mhm.
But my mom started doing
Well, yeah.
and some of that. And I'm like, don't do that. I think her levels were up to 500. And I was
Holy
like,
shit.
I
Yeah.
was like,
She's a guy at that point.
oh, she was becoming.
I bet.
I was like, Mom, don't do that. You need to go down. And now she's
So-
at a good dose. But for most women, if they're just optimizing,
Yeah.
let's say they get their levels up to 80 or 100 as a woman, they're just gonna feel better. They're gonna increase their libido. They're gonna have more energy levels. They'll still maintain skeletal muscle mass easier, but they're probably not gonna put on a ton of muscle. It's not gonna make them big or bulky or any of that.
So one of the things that we want to kind of cover at Strong New York this year is like optimizing women's health, pre and postnatal, as well as,
Thyroid. Women are far more prone to thyroid related issues.
oh, for sure.
And especially if we look at the diet community, most women over diet. They
Yo-yo diet.
undereat. They yo-yo diet.
Yeah.
They put themselves in a lot of restrictive eating. They do a ton of cardio. And women also have a much more sensitive sympathetic nervous system. And so we see a lot of hypothyroidism in women. Men, yeah, we see more low testosterone and those type of issues, but women way more prone to have hypothyroidism, which isn't always diagnosed correctly in conventional medicine. A lot of women actually will have just suboptimal thyroid function or a sluggish thyroid, and they could massively benefit from supporting their thyroid function. Doesn't mean necessarily getting on, bioidentical hormones, because thyroid support is also bioidentical hormones.
Mhm.
So the thyroid, it produces hormones. And so we can get more on bioidentical instead of synthetic form, which is often recommended in conventional medicine, or we can identify why the thyroid is sluggish, which is probably a byproduct of stress and undereating
Yeah.
and doing a bunch of
Malnourishment, right?
cardio,
Yeah.
or we're missing different micronutrients, and we can support the thyroid and we can bring the levels back up, and we can heal the metabolism, because most of the time these women are also struggling with something called metabolic adaptation, where their entire metabolism has slowed down. And so if I were to, ask a woman if she's counting macros, and she may say, well, I can't lose weight. She's like, I'm in a caloric deficit, right? If she was counting macros, she's probably not actually in a caloric deficit, because through chronic dieting, through not supporting skeletal muscle mass, her entire body has slowed everything down. Thyroid function plays a huge role in metabolism.
Mhm.
Skeletal muscle mass, we know, is metabolically active. That plays a huge role in metabolism. So we're not doing anything to support that. And so the body begins to adapt to this lower caloric intake. And then, right, when they go out to eat and they binge eat and they have all the booze and the drinks and all of that, then they put on fat, but then they end up in this yo-yoing place where now they're under muscled and over fat in the long run. And now this woman is going through menopause, and it's incredibly difficult for her to make any
Any
kind of
yeah.
body composition changes.
Yeah. So there's definitely a generation of women who are my age who were cardio bunnies. They just want to do cardio. They would never eat. They'd go out, and when they went out, they would just drink. And I see so many of these women who are in and around my age and even a little bit younger who think the only way to stay in shape and the definition of beauty to them is like they're so afraid of getting bulky and jacked.
Yeah.
But they'll run
I've
and
been bulking for a decade of my life, Kenny, and I am as big
you look
as I
jacked.
could.
Yeah. You look
No,
good. It's a
but
good,
not
yeah.
jacked. I'm lean, I'm
Yeah.
strong, I'm fit.
No, you look great.
But I always tell women, I go, "Do I look big to you?" And they're like, "No, I want a body like that." And I go, "Just so you know, I've been trying as hard as I can to put on as much muscle
Yeah.
for a decade of my life, and this is as big as I've gotten. And I'm like, I have not done a lot of restriction.
No, but you have a great shape to you, right? Like you've built your legs up and stuff. I see so many of these women who are like only doing Pilates and bar classes and all this stuff, and they have no ass and no legs, and they think like the skinnier they are, the better off they are because they're so afraid of getting into this like bulking situation. Are you seeing that a lot of these people that are kind of suffering from a lot of these symptoms are the ones who are obviously not eating enough protein and they're not adopting this, the kind of the, I don't want to call it a carnivore lifestyle, but it's like, adopting lifting and things like of this nature
So the question is, am I seeing more issues with
with people who are
yeah.
like, I don't want to bulk up. I'm going to run more. That's the key to
Oh,
my
massively.
health.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, there's two sides of the spectrum of what we see when we're looking at, let's say, metabolic related issues. We're all familiar with the typical standard American diet. I think I said on our last podcast, the
Mhm.
SAD diet. And so, yeah, overeating a bunch of processed foods, artificial foods, not doing any type of resistance training or workouts, and then we're under muscled and we're over fat as a byproduct of that. We understand that. But then there's this other side of the spectrum, which is also most Americans who are incredibly stressed out. They're burnt out with how they're working. They're not getting enough sleep. They're over caffeinated and they're doing a ton of cardio. And then also they're under eating. And so they're not actually eating enough. Maybe she is trying to focus on protein, but for most of these women, they're just under eating. They're in massive restriction.
Yeah.
And this side also has metabolic issues, just like this side does, who's eating a lot of the processed foods and overeating. It's a different type of metabolic issue, but we're seeing everything begin to slow down and adapt. In the long run, we're seeing this person under muscled just as the same. And actually, I would almost argue this person also ends up with a lot of the gut issues, the thyroid issues to go along with it. And so both of these people would be metabolically unhealthy.
Well, are you seeing now that some of these people are jumping onto GLP-1s and making their
Oh, yeah.
situation worse?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a time and a place for all medicine.
Mhm.
I think all medicine was created because there is a certain scenario where it could massively benefit somebody. Are there people who getting on GLP-1, if they're really struggling with food addiction and other things going on, that it could really help that person? Sure. Antidepressants, right? If somebody's in a really bad place mentally and to just get them back up to a different baseline to be able to actually function in their life,
Mhm.
could that be beneficial? Yes. I'm pro root cause, but I'm not against medication. But I think the problem that we run into in conventional medicine, and we could almost argue now, even in the alternative health space, is we are just giving these things out to everybody. We're giving out antidepressants.
Yeah.
Anybody who has any kind of symptom of depression, we'll say, do you fit the criteria of symptom clusters? If you fit this criteria, here's an antidepressant. Hardest thing ever to get off
Yeah.
in your life. Okay, are you struggling to lose weight? Okay, well, that'll be easier. Have GLP-1. And so I'm not against the use of it in different scenarios, but I'm against just giving it to everybody because we don't know these long term effects. And as somebody who was put on an antidepressant when I was 15 years old, because I was bullied and I had emotions, coming off of it in my mid 20s was the worst experience I ever went through in my entire life. And so people don't realize when you get on these things, when you try to come off of them later, what that is actually going to do to the body. GLP-1 does slow down motility in the gut. We know that. And so if you are also somebody who has a ton of gut issues, which most gut issues like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is a type of dysbiosis, very common. It's the main root cause for IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Motility is a big part of the issue. And so I would not recommend anybody to get on it who has a lot of gut issues because they'll also make that a lot worse.
Yeah, I had an ex-girlfriend who uh she had gut issues terribly. She was
You
also
heard of hot girl IBS?
yeah,
It's like
I actually
hot
have.
girls, I
Yeah.
got IBS.
And she she was also addicted to Adderall.
Yeah.
So I think that made her situation even worse, and it took her years to get off that shit. I think used responsibly, you could take GLP-1s and testosterone, things like that. Like if you have somebody monitoring it, but when it becomes just this quick fix to things, I think that's when it becomes a problem. So I think we've demonized a lot of these drugs because people overuse them. But I think used the right way, all these things are absolute miracles. You know, I've seen so much success with clients and people that I work with and, just friends of mine who are using these drugs responsibly and get a lot of great results from it.
Yeah.
And it changes their lives. But I think it's the people who abuse them that kind of give it a bad name.
Yeah, no doubt. And I
Eh,
think we just have to ask the question of, you know, do we want to temporarily address maybe this core symptom and issue? And if the answer is yes, great, right? And that's often what we need to do
mhm.
if somebody's really dealing with depression and they're in a really bad place. We may need to address that symptom for a period of time. There's nothing wrong with addressing the symptom, but if you are somebody who wants to be in a place of optimal health, if you want to mentally feel your best, physically operate your best, by doing these things, we're not actually fixing the core root of where dysfunction is. And so that's where I'm a big believer. If I want to be as optimal, I want to
Mhm.
have a clear mind, I want to have a regulated nervous system, and I want to have optimal function. And so if there's symptoms in my body, these symptoms are a whisper for me to take more notice. They're like the check engine light on the car. Okay, so I need to explore where these things are coming from in my body. So if I just do something to mask this symptom or this symptom and this symptom, right? It's sort of like the smoke alarms going off in the house, and we're just turning off all of the smoke alarms with the fire is still in the house. And so we're not actually fixing the core issue, and it's just going to cause more issues in the long run for most people.
And now I know everybody is, case by case basis, but what would you recommend that most women post menopause should be, you know, what's their cocktail? What should most women be on?
Well, the risk of metabolic issues and osteoporosis
Mhm.
goes up massively when a woman transitions into menopause. And so, the best thing that she can do is focusing on skeletal muscle mass. And if she hasn't focused on it for a lot of her life, we're probably in a place where we are more prone to have insulin resistance if we don't already have it.
Mhm.
And it is unfortunate where a lot of these women, when they transition into menopause, because their their insulin resistance just goes up in of itself as they transition into menopause. And then you add in that somebody's really under muscled, it just is going to make things really, really difficult. And then the osteoporosis aspect, supporting muscle is one of the best things, but vitamin D levels as well. So
Mhm.
making sure vitamin D is optimized. But same thing, how do we promote bone health? You don't see a lot of osteoporosis in people who are doing resistance training.
Yeah. Now, if you had to say, because one of the questions I get asked all the time, it doesn't matter who it is, young people, old people, it doesn't, everybody's like, all right, what supplements should I be taking? Because everybody thinks, all right, that'll be the quick fix. That's something I could do. It doesn't take much dedication. Obviously, I tell everyone, well, let's get you consistent with coming to the gym and getting you lifting weights and things like that. And then when you could do that really well, then we could talk about supplementation. So, what are the supplements that you recommend? Because I only in the last year or so had started with the omega 3s and the
Mhm.
magnesium. But what are some things that people should be taking right now?
If we're not getting testing done and
Mhm.
we're just talking about what
Throwing shit up
should
against the
most
wall. Yeah.
people be taking, omega fatty acids,
Mhm.
high quality EPA, DHA. Most people are deficient.
What are
Vitamin
some
D.
brands that you like?
We use Metagenics quite a bit in my clinic.
Okay.
It's a good one. A lot of fish oil. I don't know if you ever get in the fishy burps, but some of it can actually be rancid, not good quality. So you want to get good quality omega fats.
Mhm.
Vitamin D. Most people are deficient in vitamin D. So getting on 1,000 IUs, 2,000 IUs for people who we do testing on and who are really deficient,
Mhm.
we'll put them up to 5,000, 10,000 IUs.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people are deficient in magnesium. I just like magnesium too for sleep. Magnesium glycinate's great before bed. It's going to help with sleep. It's a muscle relaxant. Magnesium citrate or oxalate, if you're constipated, get on that one, but it doesn't absorb very well. So if you
Mhm.
overdo the magnesium citrate, you'll just have to go to the bathroom a lot. I'm a big fan of probiotics, but probiotics can be a hit or miss as well.
Yeah.
And so high quality probiotics, good strains of Bifidobacterium lactobacilli, spore-based probiotics are great for supporting the microbiome, but I'd say those would be the core ones. But really, what I would say is most people should get testing done to identify what supplements should I be on, because most people they have a I don't know if you've seen the whole graveyard of supplements of like drawers. I know I've had that for a while, but
Oh,
it's
for
like we
sure.
have all of these supplements and we're just sort of guessing on what we should take. And so the most ideal thing to do would be, like you said, exercise, nutrition, get some testing done. And what does my body actually need? Do I
Mhm.
need to support something called methylation? Do I need more omega 3s, vitamin D, magnesium? What's going on with my gut microbiome? What should I do for that? And that's going to be, of course, the most ideal.
I mean, I guess I know the answer to it, but getting blood work done with someone who's not working out, not eating right. For instance, I have some clients and some family members who don't eat very well. They don't really exercise. So them getting blood work is obviously going to tell them, well, your body's in a shit position. Should they get blood work that done then or after they start doing a lot of the things that like sleeping better, cleaning up your diet, working out? Like I think those are
I
the
think they
big
should get it
three.
done immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one, it's good to see what's actually happening in your body based off of the lifestyle that you've been living.
Mhm.
I actually think we should encourage people to get blood work done when they're in their teens, when they're in their early 20s.
Mhm.
Also, too, let's just say you are a guy and now you're 30 years old and your testosterone's at 400, but you never actually had your hormones tested when you were 20 years old. You don't know if there was an actual decline. Has this always been your baseline testosterone levels, or did
Mhm.
you actually decline? So I'm a big believer. One, start getting labs done sooner than later. Get a good baseline and then track that over time. But if you're somebody who's not really living a healthy lifestyle, like let's actually look at what is happening in your body based off of the lifestyle that you've been living. And then after that, we can tailor what we need to do specifically to you, and then let's track these changes over time. I can tell a client, I feel like I have ran so much labs on people. I can look at them and say, oh, this and this and this will be off in your labs. Like I feel like I can,
Really?
yeah, read somebody's labs just by looking at them.
Looking
Not
at them.
everything, right? I don't know if someone has like a parasite and like a microbiome test, but I'm pretty good. If I were to look at somebody, I could probably tell you most of the time what their metabolic labs will look like. I could tell you maybe what their adrenals would look like if I
Mhm.
asked them a bunch of questions. If I do ask more symptoms about their gut, I could probably tell you what their microbiome tests. And I'm right, not all the time, but most of the time. And so I could tell somebody, hey, you're inflamed. You're really inflamed. And they're like, okay. But when I run
Could you see
labs,
it in their skin?
you can see in their skin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, their skin, their gut, just their entire body,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
inflamed. Yeah, their mental health, which sometimes people don't even know that they don't feel good until they actually start to or they don't feel good until they actually start to feel good.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the baseline place that they've
Your
been
body kinda
operating
just
from for
adapts
so
to feeling
long.
like shit.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
that's just their normal,
I
right?
k I kinda feel that way when I look at people today, for instance, I was having lunch with a buddy of mine downtown, and we're sitting there, and this guy comes out, and I was like, "That guy's never fucking worked out a day in his life." He had a football shirt on, like it was his high school football jersey. I was like, "That guy played football like I'm a fucking astronaut. There's no way that that guy's ever played it down a football." He's like, "Well, how could you tell?" I go, "You could just tell his shoulders, like he had no muscular development ever in his life. You could tell guys who at one time or another played a sport or did something
Mhm.
physical. Same thing with women. Like you could tell if they at one time played a sport or something. People kind of just when they have no muscular development on their upper body or their legs, you're like this. You could just kind of get a sense of like what somebody has done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like even at an older age, like I have a client who just started working out in his 60s, and he can move pretty well
Mm-hmm.
because now he's in his 80s and stuff. But he, I could tell he's never really worked out as a kid. He just doesn't have the movement patterns that you would expect from somebody who once was athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people lose 3 to 8% of their skeletal muscle mass
Mhm.
per decade after the age of 30.
Wow.
And so if we're not starting when we're younger with trying to support skeletal muscle mass, I mean, this is why when women enter into menopause and we get older, this is the root of aging at the core. The best thing that we can do for anti-aging is supporting skeletal muscle mass. Now, does that mean that you will lose skeletal muscle when you are in your 30s and 40s? No. If you are doing resistance training and you're supporting skeletal muscle mass by eating enough high quality protein, you're going to be protecting it
Mm-hmm.
over time. But for the average person, right, they just continue to decline and decline over the course of their life. And then they get into a place where they run the risk of sarcopenia, metabolic issues. And then we see, all of these things later on.
I'm not very well versed on like pre and probiotics.
Pre and probiotics.
Yeah. Like what's the real difference and what should people be taking? There was like, I'm on a probiotic, I'm on a prebiotic. And
Yeah. So prebiotic. So pre is going to be the food for the bacteria, so think biotic bacteria.
yeah.
And so we get prebiotics from our foods all the time. And so these are going to be different types of fibers in our diet. So onions, asparagus, these are all different types of fibers, all of the cruciferous vegetables. And our entire diet, when it's full of these good, healthy fibers, we're going to be feeding different types of microbes in our gut, different types of probiotics. Uh, Probiotics in our gut, those are the good bacteria. And so we can take this in the form of a supplement. There is some people who argue that most of the probiotics out there actually don't even survive through the acidity of your stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And
I've
so
heard that
they,
as
they
well.
die off. Spore-based probiotics, there is some research that they do survive the acidity in the stomach and they do colonize to the gut. But a lot of the probiotics have been studied and still have transitory benefits. So they can benefit the immune system, they can benefit the gut lining. There's actually now different strains of probiotics called a psychobiotics that have been studied that can actually modulate the body's stress response through the vagus nerve. And so supporting neurotransmitter production, therefore supporting mental health. So we know people who have dysbiosis, a low diversity in their gut or inflamed gut, they're more prone to mental health issues, anxiety, depression, because most of our neurotransmitters are actually produced in our gut bacteria. And so, yes, we can take them through supplements. The most ideal way to build a robust and healthy microbiome would be to eat 20 to 30 different fruits and vegetables that are brightly colored all week long. Most of us are not going to do that.
No.
I know I don't do that.
No.
I don't do that at all. And so most of us have a very low diversified microbiome. There's something that I actually started recommending to our clients in my practice. It's called the microbiome mashup. It's one of the best ways that you can actually support gut health through real whole food and not through supplements. And so let's say you go to the grocery store, you go to the farmer's market and do pick out 20 to 30 different fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices. You want to think rainbow. Get a food processor, process up all of those and put them in different ice cube trays. So blend it all up, put them in the freezer. And then every single day, take 1 or 2 ice cubes and cook your eggs in it or put them in different stews or soups or
Really? You don't lose a
Drinks.
lot of the fiber, like the good parts of it when you
Oh, you're
blend it up?
blending it all up. Yeah, you're not cooking it. And so you're blending all of it together. And so you're getting the fibers, but you're also getting a diverse amount of polyphenols. And so polyphenols are what give fruits and vegetables their bright colors.
Wow.
These are incredible for supporting the microbiome. And so the microbiome mashup's a great way to do it.
Are a lot of I mean, do you find that a lot of people need to take pre and probiotics?
I think that pre and probiotics can be good. I'd say though that most people have gut issues. Most
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah.
Because most people eat a shitty diet. And so if most people eat a shitty diet and they have stress and they're not getting good sleep, they're not going to have a good microbiome. And so what's actually common is you'll hear people who are eating, let's say, the standard American diet, and they're eating their chicken nuggets and they're eating their
Ugh.
french fries and
Yeah.
their food's all like that white cream color. And then they decide they want to eat healthy. They're like, all right, I'm going to eat healthy. And they start eating broccoli and start eating asparagus, start eating chicken. And they're like, oh my goodness, I feel worse. What is going on? I actually felt better when I was eating this food over here, and I'm feeling worse. I'm feeling more bloated eating these healthy foods. What is happening? Well, I'll tell you what's happening is before they weren't getting a lot of fiber and their microbiome was accustomed to the foods that they were eating. And now all of a sudden they started to introduce all of these different fibers that their microbiome hasn't been used to digesting and breaking down. And then let's just say they have already dysbiosis bacteria overgrowth. And now their biome is fermenting on all of these fibers and producing gas and bloating. And so this person may be like, well, I don't want to eat healthy. I felt better. And they try to actually go back to maybe what they were doing before. And so sometimes this person actually needs to slowly transition and introducing more fiber because the gut bacteria aren't there to actually be able to break it all down. But it's very common.
I've actually cleaned up my diet significantly in the last 5 years. And I've definitely noticed now if I eat anything deep fried or
Yes.
fast food-esque, I don't even eat fast food, but if I go eat like a burger from like one of these like fancy places here in the city and there's a ton of shit on it, I just can't eat it
Yeah.
anymore. It kills my stomach.
Well, you know what it's like to actually
Feel
feel
good.
good and to
Yeah.
operate at a high level.
Mhm.
And so when you already operate at this place and then you start to notice these subtle things that pull you out of it, we could say we become sensitive.
Mhm.
I know I felt like that for myself. I'm like way more sensitive. I used to eat these foods and it was not that big of a deal. And are we really more sensitive, or do we actually just know what it's like to feel good and operate at a high level and we're more in tuned now with the things that throw us off and make us don't feel good? I don't know.
Mm.
It's a true question I have.
When I cut weight for tournaments and stuff for jujitsu, um, the guys in the gym are always shocked at they're like, "How'd you lose weight?" I go, "Well, I just cut back on eating as much as I did, but the days leading up to my competition, I'll eat just watermelon and steak. And if I'm training a lot, I'm like shedding weight, you
I
know?
can
And
imagine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the night before, Chrissy could tell you that night before one of my tournaments, I ate like a giant steak and I weighed that night, I weighed like 195 and the next morning I was like 189
Mm-hmm.
because I'm guessing all that meat had to get broken down and I think
You're just eating pure
my
protein, some fats. I don't
yeah.
know what kind of steak you're doing, but let's just say you're even doing a ribeye. So
Yeah,
you're getting
yeah.
some fats, which, good because otherwise you're not getting really any fats at all
Mm.
from your diet. And it's just pure protein and you're not going to be as full. But then, I mean, you're probably not eating a ton of carbohydrates. I mean, yes, there's sugar in watermelon, but for your size and how much muscle you have,
I can eat a
you were
whole watermelon.
definitely probably in a caloric
For
deficit.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I was telling him,
Yeah.
and I was like, I feel hydrated, I feel
Mhm.
good, and it takes so much for the body to
But
break
your
down
gut
that meat.
actually felt pretty good too, very flat,
Yeah,
everything, yeah.
I felt amazing the next day, like, I went for a 2-mile run before the event, and everybody's like, "Wait, you ate?" I go, "Yeah." I was like, because it takes so much for the body to break down all that meat, all that protein,
Mhm.
and I wasn't eating a lot. I mean, that's pretty much what I had all day. It was like a steak and a side of watermelon. But I woke up lighter and I felt great. And I think this idea that you have to starve yourself before
Mm.
competition, or like, especially in the sports that I like, or I've kind of grown up doing, like when I was wrestling,
Mhm.
we would starve ourselves for like a week
Oh,
out,
yeah.
and spit into cups and things like that. And it was
Did you do like the water cutting too?
all the
Remember
time.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was miserable.
I
Like
never even did that when I competed in bodybuilding,
bodybuilding.
which is
Yeah.
bikini bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But
But still, you have to be pretty lean for that stuff.
yeah,
Were you,
I barely did prep. I mean, I would just sort of a little bit a couple weeks before.
yeah.
I feel like I stay pretty lean, but I've been trying to put on weight and bulk as much as
N-
I can.
But now you were in that world. Were you taking any supplements? Were you taking any like,
Supplements, yes.
no, were you taking any um like
Any hormones
yeah,
or anabolics?
Anavar or anything like that?
No, I
No.
never did any of that.
Really?
Yeah.
And you got that lean from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, getting lean has never felt super difficult. I would
Yeah.
say my body is more of the ectomorphic type
Mhm.
body. And so I've struggled more so with putting on muscle and putting on weight, which is why I was like, I've been like bulking for the last decade.
Yeah.
Now I've been like trying to eat as much as possible and put it on. So I don't know, but yeah, never had to do any of that. Actually, when I was really lean though, so I lost my menstrual cycle, all of that. And I did start to have, different sort of health issues because it's not healthy. It's not healthy for a woman to be at that low percent body fat.
Yeah.
And so it may look good in terms of aesthetics, but if we're talking about optimal health
Yeah.
here, that's not the most optimal place to be. But of course, so when I'm that lean, my hormones are going to completely plummet. My thyroid is going to plummet. And so I remember going to see this practitioner and he was like, your testosterone is really low, right? My thyroid was really low. So I got put on thyroid medication at the time. And I didn't really understand functional medicine. I wasn't certified yet. So this was back when I was, I don't know, 22 years old. And so I got put on thyroid support, but he looked at my testosterone. He's like, you have no testosterone. And so I got put on testosterone for a short period of time. It was 30 days only. And I'm all for testosterone for women. But again, why was my testosterone low? It was low because of the metabolic stress
Mhm.
that I was under. And when we're under stress, especially metabolically at a low percent body fat, the body is going to slow everything down. So we talked about the metabolism slowing down, but thyroid is going to decline, hormones are going to decline. The body is in an energy conservation mode, so it's going to downregulate everything. So he put me on testosterone, and I started to look like I was going through puberty all over again because I started to break out. So I was like, this is dumb. I'm getting
Yeah.
off of it. And then as I shifted out of competition mode and I started to put on more weight, I actually ended up putting on 15 pounds, which is, I was really lean. And so, if like right now, I'm 123,
Okay.
I was 105 when I was competing.
Oh, wow.
So, if I'm,
Yeah.
I was really little.
Yeah.
Like I was too little. I mean, I was 22 years old. And so that was a decade ago. I'm 32 now. But as I worked on my metabolic health, you could say I reverse dieted, but I focused on putting on weight. And I did it over a slow period of time, focused on building muscle. Yes, of course, I put on fat. I needed to put on fat. My thyroid levels came up, and actually now my testosterone level is incredible. It's actually sometimes when I've had it done, they're like, it's a bit too high. And I've had to try to bring it down, but it's naturally high. I work on skeletal muscle mass. I
Mhm.
feel incredible, but I fixed the root of the issue. And so it was the metabolic stress. I fixed that. My hormones are great without it. And so, like, I'm all for getting on testosterone and all of that, but for me, that was the root of the issue. And I
Yeah.
actually didn't end up needing it at all.
So we're on a bit of a group chat. It's me, Christy, a couple of girls from the gym, and sometimes we'll send pictures of certain people from Instagram
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. And we'll send pictures of like these girls with these tiny waists and these huge asses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, her ass is fake. It's almost like impossible
Mm.
to be that
You have to look at the
skin.
legs. Is there hamstrings?
I say that all the time.
Hamstrings? Is there muscle there?
Yeah. If there's, because you can't build your ass without your hamstrings.
I
And
got
I
a
said,
muscle butt.
yeah, but now you're seeing a lot of these women who have these like thick lower bodies and no upper body. And they're like, well, I never train upper body. Could you kind of take us through what do you think these people are doing if they're like super lean up top, like very skinny, but then they have these huge asses and legs? Like, are they training legs? I mean,
I would have to like visually look at the photo. You got to show me an example.
Chris,
What it
show her
looks like.
that one
'Cause,
girl.
you know, is it possible, to like focus most of your resistance training all on glutes and legs and then not as much on upper body, and you're going to build more lower body? Yeah, we see the opposite with guys, right?
Yeah.
The guy with the skinny legs and the big upper
Exact
body.
opposite of what a
It's
guy
the
loves
exact
to look like.
opposite, right? So
Yeah.
it's possible, but it also could be, a woman who isn't doing it based off of building skeletal muscle. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be
Probably faking
a
it.
BBL or something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, that's very common these days. Well, listen, I think we got to get out of here. I think they're going to kick us out.
It's been fun.
But Rachel, thank you so much for coming back. Where could everybody find you?
Instagram is @RachelScheer, and my website's rachelscheer.com.
And that's where everybody could
They can learn more about our functional medicine process, all the
Nice.
testing, and work with myself or my team.
She is incredible. She helped everyone on our challenge. So we're hopefully going to do it again in the fall.
You're
So
gonna
if
do
you
the
guys,
gut test.
I still need to do my gut test. I definitely want to do that because I think my gut is fucked up. But guys, as always, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and share with a friend. This is another episode of the Strong New York podcast. So guys, stay strong and live long.